Brooklyn, from Houston, and zero recordings. Okay, we're on the same level. We got New York, India, Panama, Bulgaria. It's so good to see y'all here from all over the place. I love it. I'm going to let more folks trickle in for just about like 30 seconds or 40 seconds, and then we're actually going to get started. Serbia, congratulations on, man, you've got Djokovic in the Wimbledon semis. We got Nikola Jokic crushing it this way. Serbia is killing it. I love you too, Nicole. Philly and Philippines. Mars, man, we got somebody in from the future. What's up? Okay, looks like we have our crew. We got a few hundred people in the house today. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started with this. First, here's our agenda. We're going to run through some housekeeping. I'll talk about myself for like 1 second. And then I actually just want to talk about how to get better at sales and how to close more deals in the next 6 months. We're going to hop into a demo of the product, a brand new feature that we just released called Apollo Conversations. This is going to be similar to something like Gong or Clary, but it's built into Apollo. And then we'll talk about what you can do leaving this call to get better right away and to implement some of the things we talked about. Of course, we'll do a Q&A. So I'll be taking your questions. Sarah says my audio is wonky. Is my audio wonky, y'all? No, audio is fine. Everybody else says no. Sorry, Sarah. Okay, so this webinar is about unlocking your sales team's potential with conversations and with data. It is sponsored by Apollo, who's my employer, if you didn't know, and is the world's only end-to-end sales engine. It is everything that a modern sales team needs to be successful. And if you haven't created an account, I highly recommend you go to apollo.io and do so now. Now, some housekeeping items. We are recording the webinar, okay? So if you have to leave, I'm going to be wounded. Like, you're going to hurt my feelings, but I am going to send you a copy of the recording in the next 24 hours. Please, if you have questions, like, I really try and keep an eye on the chat, but go to the Q&A tab, because Radu Vaduva, who knows way more than me about everything, is answering questions in the Q&A tab. And then please don't spam the chat. If you're trying to get your WhatsApp hit up and people slide into your DMs, do that somewhere else. Also, just don't try and sell things in the chat. This is not the right place for that. We'll kick you out of the webinar and we will ban you from future webinars, which isn't very fun. Okay, so who am I? I'm Josh Garrison. I'm our head of content marketing and customer education here. And I was in sales for the vast majority of my career before I came to Apollo, doing all kinds of things, building and leading sales teams. I've done a lot of sales coaching in my time, which is a lot of what we'll talk about today. Now, before I get into the content of the webinar, I want to share something really exciting with you. I don't know if you guys have been to the Apollo website lately, but we did something very exciting today. We just launched a brand new version of our site called, or a brand new place on our site called the Apollo Magazine. And you can get here by going to apollo.io, resources, and magazine. I'm going to actually launch a little ticker right now where you guys can get to the magazine. If you haven't ever seen any of our content here and you like our webinars, click on this ticker, because we go deep trying to find the best salespeople in the world and write about what they're doing. So we just went in with HubSpot and we deep dove with their sales team to figure out how they're so successful. We dive deep with the best salespeople in the world. We have a series called Meet the World's Best Sellers. And we are literally making the world's greatest sales magazine at apollo.io on our site. So I just want to plug this. My team has done incredible work to get it to this point. We're going to be making it even better and better. And a lot of people, I think, haven't heard about it. So go take a look at the Apollo magazine if it's new to you. I'm going to let that ticker run for just like 1 second longer, and then we're going to get back into the slides. Okay, great. Good job, Carly and team, on the magazine. Oh, I guess I should share my screen, right? Okay. All right. So back into the chat. Cool. What we're talking about in the webinar today is not just the magazine, but how can we close more deals in the next 6 months? As a sales leader, this is always on my mind. I always want to know, how can I be closing more? And the link for the magazine is along the bottom of your screen. It's the little ticker that's rolling, okay? I want to know how I can be closing more. And for me, it comes down to 2 things. The first answer to that question is I can perform better in my sales calls. And then the second answer to that question is I can perform better after my sales calls. And we're going to talk about how you can do both of those things today in this webinar. So it doesn't matter how good you are at sales. you can always get better. There's always room to improve. And even for people who are in higher up leadership roles, VPs of sales, I think especially for them as they stay out of the game and they're not closing, there's a lot of opportunity to stay current and to get better. So for all of those of you who answered, I'm not listening to any call recordings at the start of this webinar, this is an opportunity for you to get better at closing. And it's actually super important to be listening to call recordings and trying to get better. Sales coaching has been proven to be incredibly impactful. There's actually a study done on this that found that effective sales coaching was able to increase deal size, win rate, and new lead conversion by between 25 and 40%. So I don't know about you, but an increase in 25 to 40% of my win rate and deal size, that's a pretty big change in my take-home pay. That's a meaningful impact for me. But the thing with in successful call coaching is that it's really hard. It takes a lot of time to deliver effective coaching. And there was a study done on this that showed that call coaching that was delivered with less than an hour of preparation time was actually not effective. It was a waste of time. And I think we've all had that experience, right? Where a manager is like, hey, let's do some coaching. They give you some snickle fritz ideas for how you could get better. And you're like, this is not helpful for me. Like, you clearly didn't listen to the call. You don't know what you're talking about. And that's actually just a waste of time. Whereas effective coaching can be a game changer for you. But I think the problem for me has always been that I have too many reps for the amount of time I have in my day. So if it's going to take me an hour or 2 hours to do an effective coaching, and the average ratio of rep to manager is 8-1, and that's according to the Harvard Business Review, we're just out of time. There's just not enough time to be a great coach. So that's the challenge for the manager, is how can I be a great coach to my team and also do all the other stuff I have to do, being a deal review, in the deal review cycle, taking some calls myself, going to all the meetings I have to go to. And then as an individual rep, you can't rely on just your manager to coach you, right? You have to be able to coach yourself, and you should be learning by osmosis. But it's harder now than ever because we're not all working in the same place anymore, right? Even when I was going into an office in San Francisco, I had colleagues in New York, in London, in Boston. I was always on Zoom. But when I started my career in sales, I was surrounded by other salespeople. So I was listening to them pitch every single day, 8 hours, 9 hours a day. Now that just doesn't happen as much, which is a shame, because when HubSpot did a survey and they actually asked salespeople what the most effective way for them to get better was, what they reported was it was their peers. It wasn't their manager. It wasn't their sales enablement team. It was listening to other people on the team. Well, that's something that we're going to talk about today. We're actually going to get into the Apollo product. We can use technology to give better coaching as ourselves, and also to help our team give better coaching for each other. Okay. So I'm going to hop into Apollo. I'm going to show you guys how to use the conversations feature. Now, we are going to come back into slides and continue here in a bit, just to give you guys an idea for what the webinar looks like. Okay. Yeah, Corey, we're going to talk a bunch about coaching. We're going to talk about follow-up emails. We talk about a lot of stuff. So feel free to drop if you so desire. All right. I'm going to pop into Apollo right now. Can you guys see my screen okay? Okay, great. So where I am in Apollo, we're going to start in the home button, but I'm actually going to click on the settings wheel in the top right-hand corner first, because there's a little bit of setup that I want to do to make the conversations feature effective for me. The first thing I want to show you is this Teams button on the left-hand side of the settings screen. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to set up teams in my Apollo instance, assuming that I'm not rolling solo. Like at Apollo, we have multiple sales teams. So I have a small business team, I have a commercial team. We have a bunch of different teams. If we set up teams in the settings now, when we go to listen to calls in the conversations feature, this will be a helpful filter for us. So I can just hit new team, and I can create a team name. I'll call this SMB2, and then I can choose who in my Apollo instance I want to add to that team. So that's just a quick setup thing that if you haven't done yet, highly recommend you take that step. Because now we're going to go on the left-hand side. Can you guys, he says, hide my camera view. So all right. Anyways, we're going to go on the left-hand side, and I'm going to click on conversations. And this is going to take me to this setup page, where if you haven't set up conversations before, it will ask you to connect It'll ask you to connect your Microsoft Teams, your Zoom, or your Google Hangouts account. So when we talk about conversations, that's what I mean. I'm talking about your actual sales demos. I'm not talking about the cold calls that you can make using our dialer. We're talking about the sales demos you're taking. And the first question you're going to be asked is, whose teams do you want to be recorded? So that's why we set up teams a second ago. So you can say all teams or only certain teams. You can exclude some people from having their calls being recorded. So, maybe you don't want your CEO's calls to be recorded. Maybe you don't want your legal team's calls. And you can set up by default to only have Apollo record calls with an external participant. So none of your internal calls need to be recorded and to show up in the conversations tab of Apollo. You can also exclude entire domains. So if you know that, like, I don't want any of my calls with Google to show up here, you can set that up. And then there is going to be a bot that's going to join your sales calls. And you can name that bot. So I've named him Mr. Recorder, and then you can just hit save. Now, I promise I'm going to get out of settings in a second. I know it's not the most exciting thing, but I do want to talk about trackers. So one thing for me, when I'm doing call reviews for myself or call reviews for somebody else, I really want to be able to quickly find keywords that are important, just to save myself time and not necessarily have to listen to the entire call. That's what a tracker is. So I can hit this button, add tracker, and now I have the option to add either a pre-built or a new tracker that's custom made. So we've pre-built a ton of trackers for you, and these are keywords like, all these keywords that are associated with discovery questions. So I highly recommend you check out some of these, but I'm going to show you how to create your own tracker. So I'm going to go ahead and hit new trackers, and now maybe I want to create a tracker for my competitors. So this will make it really easy when I am doing call recordings to find where in the conversation they're talking about the competition. So for Apollo, it might be Zoom info. I just hit enter. It might be outreach. I just hit enter there. And this is a way for me to set up some tracking that makes it easier for me to coach when I get into the conversations tab. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save. And I'm going to give myself a second to drink water. I'm going like 10 miles a minute. I'm going to try and catch up to some of the questions in the chat. So let's see real quickly. Is there any chance the tracker do not appear in the meeting as a participant? That was from Guido. Most of the time, that will only happen, that can happen if you connect to Apollo conversations and then disconnect and then reconnect. It can get weird, but for the most part, if you set it up right the first time, that shouldn't be an issue. Nicole says I'm too fast. I'll try and slow down. Okay, so I'm gonna drink some water. And now I'm actually gonna get out of the settings and I'm actually gonna go to conversations. So to get there, hit engage and go to conversations. I'm actually gonna leave this account and I'm gonna show you the Apollo version of Apollo, which, like, don't tell anybody. This is some super secret stuff, because I wanna show you how this actually works with a live call. So this is what the conversations feature looks like. And yeah, Sam's asking, what's the list of meetings that can be recorded? It's Teams, Microsoft Teams, Google Meets, and Zoom. Those are the three providers that we integrate with right now. Okay, so once I've done that setup and I've connected my video calling account, I can view this page for conversations. And there's some great filters on the left-hand side that make it easy for me to find calls that are relevant. So you can see Apollo, we've been testing this feature out. We got 13,000 recorded calls here. I don't want to listen to all 13,000 calls, okay? Deb, I can't zoom all the way in on the screen. You don't need to read everything, unfortunately. I'm just trying to show you how this works. And yes, this will be recorded. I've seen people ask this. We're recording the webinar. We're going to send you the recording. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to use these filters to find the calls that are relevant for me. So I can click in and I can only find the calls from a certain user. So in this case, I could say for myself, and I could search by host or participant. That's really useful. Or I can go by the contact, like who I'm trying to sell to in Apollo, or when the call happened, how long the call was, or by the stage. So if I only want to go pull calls that are cold or working or meeting set or whatever, I can do that. So filters, super helpful, super useful to save you time. But we started this conversation by asking, how can we close more deals in the next 6 months? And this is a attempt for me to help answer that question for you. I want to click on, from the conversations tab, I'm going to click on analytics. Out of the box, Apollo gives you some analytics on how your team is doing in their sales calls. And we set up a team before, right? So if I click over here on the right-hand side, I can click on this button and I can choose whose calls I want to analyze. I'm going to analyze only my sales team's calls right now. And I'm going to show you what this does. It's going to tell me the total call volume, how long the calls are, how the average length, how many calls my team is having. And if I click on any of these, it's going to show me exactly how that breaks down across my team. But what's more valuable is to click on this button that says interaction. So one thing I want you all to pay attention to, if you're struggling to close as many deals as you want to right now, come in and look at this ratio right here. It's called talk ratio. There is something called the golden number in sales, right? And that golden number is something like 70-30. And what I mean by that is 70% of the time, somebody else is talking. And 30% of the time, you as a salesperson are talking. That's the golden ratio. It's really hard to hit that number, 70-30. The only way to get there is to be asking questions. If you're asking questions, you're by default not talking a lot. The other person is talking. Now, you're never probably going to hit 70-30 consistently, but 60-40, right? You want to be in the minority. You want to be asking questions because that means as a salesperson, you're doing your job, you're doing discovery, you're learning what the other person is dealing with and figuring out how you can help them. What you'll notice often is that your lowest performing reps, or if you yourself are struggling, if you come in here and run this analysis, you'll find that you're talking too much. And if you're talking too much, you're selling too hard. You're trying too hard to close. So when we talk about how can we close more deals, how can I help my team be more effective, this is the first thing I look for. I come in here and I see, hey, who on my team is talking a lot? Now, I'm not trying to put Diego on blast. I don't know how Diego's doing. Like maybe he's crushing it. But as a manager or as a founder, as a salesperson, the first thing I'm going to look at is this. And then I'm going to pop back into conversations. And now this can help me figure out, hey, where should I focus my time on coaching? Okay. So I want to show you what that actually looks like. I'm going to find a call that I did with Anthony. So I don't know if you guys remember, but I did a webinar with Anthony on cold calling. And before I dive into this, Jacqueline just asked, trying too hard is bad. I think in sales, trying too hard is bad, right? If you're trying to sell someone something, you've kind of lost the thread. Like the way that you close deals, or the way that I've always closed deals, is figuring out what the other person is struggling with. Like, why are they wanting to talk to me in the first place, and finding a way for me to help them. Me trying to pitch and trying to sell and trying to close is like by talking and talking and talking is a less effective way of doing that than by asking questions. So, okay, I've just gone in and I've clicked from conversations. I found myself as the host, and these are my list of calls that I've done. And I've clicked into the call. I'm going to show you a couple things that blew my mind when I saw them. And I hope this is useful for you guys. Okay, so on the left-hand side, I can see some details about the call. If I click call details, I can see who was in it and what account the call was with. Then I can go to the summary, and this is incredible. Our AI is transcribing your call, which you can see on the right, and it creates a summary of the entire call in one paragraph, which is super useful. Maybe I want to use this on a follow-up email, which I'll show you in a second, and I can just click on it and it's going to copy it to my clipboard. So if I'm coming in and reviewing my team's calls, like, I don't know if you guys have ever done this, but I go into the call library, pull a call, I get 10 minutes into it, and I'm like, this call's about nothing. Like this guy just put you on mute while he went to go deal with UPS or something. You can find that out right away in the call summary. The other thing that's really helpful is you can click on this next steps button, and it shows you any next steps that were discussed in the call. So that's really helpful for figuring out, like, hey, were next steps even agreed on? That's something that I always talk to my reps about, is that you want to set a next step on the call. You don't want to wait until your next call or until your follow-up email to try and set up your next call. You want to do it while you have them on the phone, so you can see your next steps there. Now you'll notice that there's this big video of my face. I've got like 2 versions of my face you guys can see probably. If you hit play, you can actually see this timeline starts playing down below. So that's how you move around in the conversations feature, is you have to move this timeline around, and it kind of moves you through the call. So we started this whole conversation by setting up a team and by setting up trackers. You can see those on the left where it says key topics. I got all these trackers here. So if I want to navigate around this call, I can just click on the tracker, click on the transcript, and it takes me right to where that conversation began, right to where that keyword was. But what's more helpful to me, to the conversation we were just having about asking questions and talk time, is this. I can actually just click and see who asked what questions. How many questions did you ask? So if I'm a manager and I'm like, hey, my team we got to close more this month. We just have to do it. The first thing I'm going to do is come into conversations. I'm going to go to that tab to analytics. I'm going to go to interactions. I'm going to see who's talking too much. And then I'm going to come back, pull their calls, and I'm going to go straight to the questions tab. How many questions are you asking? Are you asking the right questions? That's an easy intervention for coaching. And if I find a place like they should have asked a question, I can just come to this comments button. I can hit comment, and now I can actually do my coaching. I can say, hey, you should have asked a question. And this is really helpful for me because I used to spend all this time making a Google Doc where I'd like take notes from what happened on the call, and I'd like leave coaching for them, and then I'd share it with them. And then we do that in our one-on-one. I can just do all of that in Apollo now. And I can choose who can see it. Everybody at Apollo, only the person who I'm giving the coaching to, or just myself if I wanted to do that. So that's a very easy way for me to deliver coaching right in the moment when I, like as a manager or as my own self, if I'm listening to my own calls or if I'm listening to my colleagues' calls, right in the moment when I hear something that they could have done differently, I can just leave a comment. So that's a high level overview of how the conversations feature works. I'm really curious. I want to take a look at the chat and solicit some feedback. Like, is this helpful for you? Did you guys feel like that was useful for me to walk through this? Okay, seeing some yeses. Oh, the haters stayed home today. Yeah, Furkan, I saw your question. Put it in the Q&A tab. We'll talk about it. All right, great. I'm so happy you guys like it. Our team worked really hard to get this out the door. So it's a lot like Gong, Chris said, yes, but it's a lot cheaper than Gong. I'll say that. Okay, we have some questions in the Q&A for which languages. Put that in the Q&A tab for sure. Which plans is this available on? Anthony asks. I'll just answer that now before we continue. It's available for all paid plans of Apollo. All right, so there's some more I want to show you. I want to show you guys this in the summary tab. So I showed you that you can see this summary here and you can see the next steps. But the magic, the like fire magic, is this button here that says draft follow-up email. When you click on it, Apollo is going to take that, it's going to draft an email for you. It's going to include the recording, a recap of the conversation, the next steps that you agreed on, and then, you know, whatever blanket copy you want to have here, like, let me know if you have questions. This is such a lifesaver for me because I used to spend so much time putting together follow-up emails after my sales calls that having Apollo do 80% of the work for you is just an incredible lift. It's a lifesaver for reasons that we'll talk about in a second. So that's the Apollo Conversations feature. I am going to pop back into slides right now. There's more I want to talk about in terms of how we can close more deals. So we're going to come back into the slides. I'm going to take a look at the chat. I am also going to run a survey really quickly, and I'm going to drink some water. So before I continue, I want to run a survey really fast. If you want to close more deals and you would like to talk to somebody about an Apollo custom plan, just say yes to this survey. It should appear on the right-hand side of your Goldcast screen. And here's why I bring that up. If you guys use Apollo and you're getting value from it, the best bang for your buck is this custom plan. Okay, absolutely, because you can select up to 10,000 records at a time. You get access to buying intent. You get access to data enrichment and to job change alerts. You're going to be able to fill your pipeline more successfully with a lot of these features. And then all the things we talked about in terms of how to perform better on your calls, that's going to happen at higher volume, right? I think this is a no-brainer, the custom plan. I don't want to sell it too hard. So there's a survey on the right-hand side of your screen. Just fill it out if you want us to call you about a custom plan for Apollo. I'm going to let that run for just like a minute while I drink some water, and then we're going to get a move on. We'll keep going. Okay. I'm so thirsty. And yeah, Nicole, if you're already on a basic plan, it's best for you. Don't worry about it. Like, we have different plans for different reasons. Just want to give you guys an opportunity to get a call from our team if you are interested in the custom plan. Gio's asking if I'm drinking moonshine. It's not that time of day, not yet. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close the survey. I'm going to wind it down. Don't worry, we'll run another poll at the end. If you want to talk to our sales team, we'll get to that. But we will keep going. So we went through conversations. Now, this is a brand new feature, guys. There's way more coming out from our team. This is a sneak peek at that roadmap. So if there was something you wanted to see but you didn't see, it's probably coming out in the next month or 2 or 3, and this is what that might look like. But I want to continue with this thread. How can we close more deals in the next 6 months? We talked about performing better in your calls and the role that coaching has in that and the role that listening to your own calls has in that. But I want to talk about how to be better after your sales calls, okay? And this is something that doesn't get a lot of play and it doesn't get a lot of love because it's harder to coach and it's harder to diagnose. But it's so important because 90% of a sale happens after that initial conversation. If you think about it, right? Like you have that initial demo call, but then you have all of the remaining part of the sales process that you have to bring through. And nobody focuses on this, but this can have a huge impact on how much money you make because it comes down to what we call your sales velocity, okay? Sales velocity is basically a very simple equation. It's the number of opportunities you have, the size of your deal value, and the amount of deals that you win divided by how long it takes you to close a deal. So let's just look at some simple math. If I have 50 opportunities, each deal has a $25,000 value, and I win 10% of my deals, but it takes me 50 days to close a deal, I'm only bringing in $2,500 a day. But if I can cut my sales cycle down to 30 days, nothing else changes. I don't have to be a better salesperson and win more. I don't have to go find bigger accounts and have, higher deal values. If I can just shorten the sales cycle, I can be way more productive and get paid a lot more money because I'm working on commission. You might think that you have no way to influence this. And I've heard this from reps throughout my career. They're like, I can't choose when somebody else decides to close the deal, but you're wrong. And I'm not just talking about all of the tips and tricks that every salesperson knows. It's the end of the month. Let me send you a discount. If you sign right now, I'll hook you up with the deal. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about pressuring people into signing. I'm talking about something else. What I mean is this. When you're selling into a decision maker persona, this is what their calendar looks like. This is what my calendar looks like. This is madness, but they're a decision maker for a reason. They're making decisions not just about buying your software or service. They're making decisions about their company. They have to meet with other people. People need their input on things. What this means for you as a salesperson is that timing is everything. If you wait 12 hours to send your follow-up email, they've had 10 meetings between your demo and the time they get your email, you're gone. They're not even thinking about you anymore. They've moved on. So that window of opportunity when you need to follow up with them is very short. And I always used to coach my reps, and I do this myself as well. Even today, I send a follow-up email within 30 minutes. And what that creates is a system of reciprocity. This is like a very subtle sales psychology thing. If I act with urgency and I follow up with people very rapidly, it creates an expectation on their end that we're constantly going to be moving quickly. And that will create an expectation that the deal cycle progress quickly. And it's subconscious. I don't have to pressure them. It just is something that I do. It's how I engage with the person on the other side of the aisle. And this is going to lead to them wanting to engage back with me quickly. But if I wait, let's say I have a meeting with somebody, the meeting goes well, but I'm busy. So I wait 12 hours, they get to the end of the day or maybe the next morning and I send the follow-up email. What I'm saying to them without saying anything is that this deal is not that important and that you can wait a day or 2 days or 3 days to get back to me because I waited 12 hours to get back to you. So this is one hard to coach and really difficult thing to implement, but it can absolutely increase your sales velocity, which can put more money in your pocket. And I love to use this email format, okay? Which is, here's a greeting. Hey, thanks so much for your time. Here's a link to the recording if you want to do that. You don't have to send the recording link. I like to say, here's what we talked about, just a couple sentences. Here's what we agreed on for next steps. Here's when we're meeting next, right? You have already set that meeting up. And then I just say, if you have any questions, here's my cell phone number. Always give the cell phone number out. And I send that out within 30 minutes of the call. Now, we already showed you how Apollo can help you do that. It's not quite fast enough to go 30 minutes, but it will get it to you in an hour or two. So if you're back to back to back, you can come to Apollo, have Apollo write this for you. But the key is to go as quickly as possible, get that follow-up email out the door, create that reciprocity, increase your sales velocity. So I've talked a lot, like so much. I'm annoyed with me how much I've talked. So I just want to sum this up for you guys, what you can do right now. First, set up a weekly coaching routine with your team. It's very simple. Each manager listens to one call from each rep each week. Each rep listens to one of their own calls each week, and each rep listens to one call from one of their teammates each week. That's 3 calls total from everybody on your team other than the manager who's listening to calls, or that's 2 calls for everybody on your team and more calls for the manager. That's a doable workload, but this is going to create a culture on your team of continuous improvement. And as a coach, you have to resist the temptation with feedback to point out every little thing that people do wrong or that could be done better. Of course, there's a million things they could do better, but I have a very simple framework. In the first month on the job, I only give 1 point of feedback for a new sales rep. In the second month, like per call. In the second month, I'll give up to 2 points of feedback per call. In the third month, I'll give up to 3 points of feedback per call. This gives people enough time to really internalize the feedback that you're giving and get better. You're never going to turn somebody from a brand new rep into a killer salesperson in one call coaching, right? It's going to take time. And it's best done just like when you want to follow up with the people that you're selling to very quickly. You want to deliver your coaching very timely fashion with the people on your team. So I try and deliver coaching on a call that happened within 24 hours. If I have a one-on-one with you on Wednesday, I'm going to pull a call from you on Tuesday. So deliver feedback within 24 hours, you're going to get better results. 48 hours max, because it's fresh on their mind, on your team's mind. And then the last thing I'll leave you with, or the second to last thing before we go into Q&A, is just focus on that continuous improvement, 1% better each day, each week. That's how you close more deals in the long run, right? You get better at pitching, you get better at following up, you're going to close more deals. And then you can influence the big picture by coaching your reps and having them coach each other. You're going to hit your number. By hitting your number as a sales leader, you're going to have leverage in the organization, and you're going to have all these Apollo conversation recordings that you can send to your product team or your services team and tell them, hey, this is what our customers want. Go build this, go make this. And if they do that, it's easier for you to hit your number and everybody makes more money. So that's what I had prepared for you guys today. I know there's a ton of questions in here. I'm going to hop into the Q&A. But before I do that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen really quickly, and we are going to run a poll as I come into the Q&A. And the poll is very simple. It's going to take over the screen here in a second. If you would like to set up a demo with the Apollo sales team, just say yes to the poll. I'm back. This is how you know we're live, you guys. I accidentally left. Okay, are you guys here? Yes. Okay. So I'm going to hop into Q&A. And all right, so somebody asked me, I've had this question like 11 times since we started the webinar today. Somebody asked, why does Apollo, as a LinkedIn automation question, right? You were like, why does LinkedIn keep blocking me? Here is the answer to that question. LinkedIn has limits on the amount of activity that you can do on LinkedIn every day. So if you're using the Apollo Chrome extension to automate things like sending a connection request or sending a message or viewing somebody's profile, there's a limit on that. And the limit is pretty low. I think it's, don't quote me here, but it's something like 50 or 100 a day. Well, if you have the automation set up to do more than that, LinkedIn is going to shut you down. So you have to be very judicious about the automation that you use on the LinkedIn platform. That's why. That's the answer to your question, Salman. Okay. I'm popping in the Q&A. What type of security do you have on conversation recordings, i.e. are you SOC 2? I believe so. Apollo has, if you go to our website, we have a section on our security. You can scroll down to the bottom, I believe, and this is our privacy, trust and security. And we lay out all of the compliance certifications that we have. So Apollo SOC 2 compliant, ISO 27001, GDPR, there's more information here. So if you have questions there, I would highly recommend that you take a look at that. The maximum number of minutes per recording, that conversation disappeared. If you have questions on the minutes available in the Apollo Conversations feature, you can come into our pricing page. The answer is it's up to 8,000 minutes across your team. So if you need more minutes than that, then say yes to the poll and you can talk to our sales team. Ethan is asking, I feel like the Apollo platform hasn't clicked with me and my company yet. Any suggestions for making each area click well? For example, I'm not finding the perfect combo of email, call, email, LinkedIn, connection request. Yeah, that's a good question. Outbound sales is hard, right? In terms of finding the right sequence structure, I think that's a great topic for a future webinar. But if you haven't, I would recommend you come to our site. If you haven't seen the other webinars we have, go to resources, go to webinars. They're all here. It's some combination of the right targeting and the right copy, right? And like the right messaging. So I would say probably 80% of success. Oh, I'm not sharing my screen, but go to our website, go to resources, go to webinars. You'll see the others. We've done a webinar on copywriting, done a webinar on finding the right leads. 80% of outbound success is based on your targeting. And the remaining 20% is the copy and the sequence structure that you have in place. So Ethan, if you have more questions, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Brandon, the best way to get a 30-minute slot with a rep for Q&A, if you have just support questions, go into the Apollo website or the Apollo product. In the bottom right-hand corner, there's a little chat bot. It's our logo. If you have questions for support, that's where you should put them. And our team can provide support for you there. Is it possible to mute the recording announcement? The voice is a bit annoying, showing up randomly. I'm not sure, Iona. We have to tell people that the call is being recorded. I think that's a legal requirement, but I'll follow up with the product team. Okay, I'm seeing some more questions come in, popping in the chat. Yes, thanks, Brandon. Where can I find the best sales coaches if we do not have one at work? That's a great question. I think the Apollo, so if you go to our LinkedIn page, follow us on LinkedIn, leave a comment on any of our LinkedIn posts asking about how you can join our sales communities. We actually are spinning up some communities in Slack where great salespeople from across the world are able to help each other out. So that's what I would recommend. Or join a community like Rev Genius or something like that. There's a lot of these like Slack groups where other salespeople can help you coach. Any recommendations for good messaging and scripts on outbound calls? So Richard, we have a webinar on outbound calls, on cold calling. I highly recommend you take a look at that webinar. One of the best cold callers in the world joins me. We spent about an hour talking about it. I provided a script. So go take a look there. Okay, back to the Q&A. Will Apollo introduce predictive calls option, calling several numbers at the same time? So this is for Nikolaj. This is also called like a parallel dialer, right? That's something that I think is on our long-term roadmap, but I can't give you any kind of commitment on when that's something we would build. A template or matrix to help call coaching / scoring. Steve, that's a good question. One thing I would say, sneak peek, you guys, like go and follow, go to the Apollo magazine and keep an eye on it, because we are going to be spinning up something called Apollo Academy over the next several months, where we're going to go make masterclass courses with some of the best people in sales on topics like this, where we can provide frameworks like that. Carlos asked, where can I find past webinars like the one on cold calling? Yeah, just go to the Apollo site and I'll show you where to do that. All right, I'm gonna close this poll if you guys are done with it. I haven't seen anybody vote. So if you want to hear from somebody on our sales team to get a demo of Apollo, say yes to the poll. If not, I'll turn it off here in the next minute or two. Okay. Can we use this as marketing automation? Yes. The answer is yes. The feature for that is called Plays, and we had a webinar on Plays that you can find on our site. So just go to the apollo.io site, go to resources, go to webinars. That webinar is called 4 Ways to Automate Sales in Apollo. And I cover how to automatically send emails out to your inbound leads. And I mean, it's not ever going to be like, maybe not ever. Apollo is not going to be something like HubSpot, which is made for marketing automation, but you can do a little marketing automation with Apollo. Okay, so I think we have time. We've got 5 minutes left. So if you guys have future or additional questions, please get them in now. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll because I'm tired of looking at it, and I'll close the poll. Okay, so now I'm back in the chat. the links to the Slack channels we mentioned, Jan, I'll try and get those for you. I actually don't have them handy. Is Conversations available in the free version? It is not. Conversations is only available in the paid versions of Apollo. Okay. Oh, Janet's saying there's votes in there. Maybe I should reopen the poll. All right. Since you don't have an ETA on Google Meet, how can we connect Apollo recording to Google Meet? Any runarounds? Elena, we have Google Meet out of the box. We have Microsoft Teams, Google Meet, and Zoom. So you can connect Conversations to your Google Meet account. Okay. In the past, webinars have asked participants to contact you via LinkedIn for worksheets. Kaylin is saying, I don't know how to contact you via LinkedIn. All right, let's do it. You guys want to see my LinkedIn? My LinkedIn is just, you can just search for my name. It's just Joshua Garrison, and you can find me on LinkedIn, or just go to apollo.io. But that's what I would recommend, is just, go to our site. You can follow us. You can search for me in here. You can also just find me using Apollo. Just search for Josh Garrison, and I'll pull up, and it'll have a link to my LinkedIn. Okay, so I'm gonna take like 2 or 3 more questions, and then I think we're gonna wrap it up. Will Apollo develop a pop-up or sound notification for tasks? I don't know. I'm not sure. Carl's asking, can I show you how to? Yes, I can show you how to get to previous webinars, Carl. Okay, so this is my screen. Can you guys see it? I'm assuming that's a yes. Here's what you do. Go to the apollo.io site, click on resources, and then go to webinars. And all of our webinar recordings from every webinar that we've done are located here. And this page is going to get a facelift soon, but I think we have 5 webinars here. So that I have done, and then we have dozens more that other people at Apollo have done before I got here. There's a lot of value here. So just go to apollo.io, resources, and webinars. And remember, the magazine is just right here, Apollo Resources and Apollo Magazine. Okay. Do call summaries post to SFDC on the opportunity or task object? That's Michael Dobos. Michael Dobos, I know you. Welcome, my friend. The call summaries, that is a feature that is coming soon. It's on the roadmap, and they will post there. Eli's asking, do we have an affiliate program? Yeah, I love that question. We absolutely have an affiliate program. Let me show you how to find it. So if you come to the Apollo site, scroll to the very bottom. Oh, wait, you don't have to go all the way to the bottom. Who's this guy? You can go to resources, partners, and affiliate partners. And you can sign up for an affiliate partnership with Apollo, where you can refer people to Apollo, and you can earn commission on your referrals to the Apollo platform, which is a great way to make some extra money. And Furkan is asking, can we partner with Apollo? Yes, you can partner with us in a variety of ways. You can find us through our affiliate partners or agency partnership. There's a variety of different ways to become a partner. And again, you could always just find me on LinkedIn or at somebody at apollo.io on LinkedIn, and we'll get back to you as well. Okay, so James is asking, what integrations does Conversations offer for dialing software? So Conversations right now is for your video conferencing. It's for Zoom, Microsoft Teams, and Google Meets. If you're looking for an integration with a dialer like Orem or I don't know, like Ring Central or something like that, it doesn't have integration there. Okay. I think we're like 1 or 2 more questions. I'm going to break my rule. I'm going to go into the chat and I'll see what questions are here. Inbound marketing question. Who we know who is selling and who is buying with just a single keyword? I don't know. That's a good question. Do we have an email warming system for email campaigns? Yes, Michael's asking that. We do have an email warming system for email campaigns. I'll try and show you how to get there. So if you come into Apollo, go to settings, and from within settings, you can go to mailboxes. I'm trying to figure out how I did this. Yeah, okay, so here it is. So you go into mailboxes, you have your mailboxes here. Click into one mailbox, scroll down, and you'll see this mailbox warm-up. And this is a warm-up feature, a mailbox warm-up feature that we have. And if you turn it on, you can set up mail warming for that mailbox. And that can help you with your deliverability. If you don't see this, just click when you're in Apollo, talk to our support team. Just click on our support team box and they will be able to help you out. All right, we are at time. It's been 45 minutes of me talking. I'm tired of me talking. I really appreciate you guys coming. This has been always an honor and a privilege. I'm actually, I won't be around for the next month or so because my wife and I are expecting a baby next week. So I'll be back at the end of August. Other people will take my place for additional webinars in that interim. Please find me on LinkedIn if you want to connect. Find us on LinkedIn if you want to connect with us. Go to the Apollo magazine if you want to learn from the best salespeople in the world. But until next time, I'm Josh Garrison. I really appreciate you guys coming. Thanks so much.